Okay, welcome back. This is the second little lesson on performance orientation titled Allowed to Be Me. Let's go ahead and get started. Children need to misbehave sometimes. Again, children need to misbehave sometimes. That's what children are. Rascals with angelic eyes and dirty skin. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of discipline will remove it far from him. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 15. A child's foolishness needs to be checked by firm hands, and each child given perimeters while being warmly held and accepted, especially when acting at his worst. Again, let's read that again. A child's foolishness needs to be checked by firm hands, and each child given perimeters while being warmly held and accepted, especially when acting at his worst. That says love is unconditional. Wow. It writes into the heart that love is a gift fully given and never lost. Love creates security. But many parents use a child's need for love to try to control. I can't love you when you act like that. How dreadfully damaging to a child. Help! I must remember what I am supposed to be. What if I can't or won't do it? Oh, nobody can love me. I don't deserve it. If he could voice it, the child would say, I'm hungry. Why can't they just love me as I am? So out of dread, he sets himself to earn love. Now go to your room, and when you can act like you can come out again. The translation of such communication is only the performer is acceptable here. If you don't perform up to our standards, you earn rejection. Leave the table. When you can come out wearing a smile, you can be part of the family again. We're not going to have an old grump around here. Real message. Love is not unconditional around here. You are not free to express honestly. Lie and put on a hypocritical face. Then we can accept you. Our spirit knows better than that. But fear and the need to belong master us. So we make ourselves act out what we are not. Not only is a child told in many ways that letting the real one live earns rejection, but also parents may add to the message by intimidating that the real one ought not to exist at all. From then on, honest impulses of anger, frivolity, or spontaneity are identified as not us, something to be suppressed or avoided. At last, the inner being quits trying and dies, and the hollow shell performs, devoid of real abundant life. Until that kind of wrongful death, the inner being keeps trying to live. As a result, duality of personality is basic to all of us. I grew up with the message, a Sanford man never hits a girl. That was a fine teaching that to this day I am grateful for and to live by. But what was I to do with the part of me that wanted to wallop my sister, Martha Jane? To have to learn to check my feelings and make appropriate choices was good. But on what basis did I make such choices? Was it from love in my heart and respect for my father and mother and brothers and sister? Or was it because I was afraid I wouldn't be a Sanford? Well, perhaps a mixture of both. Was fear not to belong more the ruling factor than love? Which motive actually governed me? Which motive still governs me today? A simple rule is this: where much laughter and affection are present, children learn they are accepted no matter how well or poorly they perform. Again, let me repeat that. A simple rule is this: where much laughter and affection are present, children learn they are accepted no matter how well or poor they perform. They are free to be. When children who have just goofed badly can leap into their parents' arms and all can laugh and learn, even if discipline has to be applied, children learn that the nasty side is also me and is loved and lovable too. Love covers a multitude of sins. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 8. Nowhere is that more true than in the helter-skelter of children's emotions. Unconditional love, not taken for granted, but often expressed, grants security to venture all sides of the me a child is discovering, and freedom to choose which modes to settle into, from an altogether different base than fear. Conversely, uptight, rigid demands of behavior without affection clamp upon children manacles of control. You will not be loved unless you can deserve it. Once that lie is grafted in, it becomes the governing trunk to all our fruit. All our actions flow through that stem. Even in the warmest, most secure families, anxiety normally tinges freedom with fear. An infant can play peekaboo for hours and giggle every time daddy or mommy come out from behind the covering. Children, perhaps from birth trauma into a sinful world. Again, children perhaps from birth trauma into a sinful world have great inner fear of being left or rejected. The game of peekaboo acts out the fear and gives assurance again and again, because each time mommy and daddy are still there. Even in warm, loving families, we can fear blowing the good life, fear dishonoring the family, fear that after all we might be unacceptable if we prove to be different from everybody else. Therefore, the rule is anxiety is augmented to dread and compliant performance to the degree of coldness and rigidity in the family behavioral pattern. To that degree, fear binds all life, who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 15. Again, it says, who through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives. The death we fear is not physical death. To the performance-oriented believer, again, the death we fear is not physical death. To the performance-oriented believer, physical death would mean release. Rather, we fear dying to that world of control we have falsely come to believe guarantees us belonging and love. That fear of death prevents even the born anew from change. Until love reaches frozen corners and death of self sets free. Until love reaches frozen corners and death of self sets us free. And that's the end of Allowed to Be Me. And the next one is going to be characteristics of performance orientation. That sounds pretty good.